Good morning. My name is Kathy Campbell, and I'm here on behalf of the Affirming Ministry Group at Trinity United Church. This month, with our guest, Rob, is extra special. It's Pride Month, and it's Indigenous Peoples Month. And so we are here together to learn, and I'm really excited to be welcoming Rob this morning with us. And we have done the protocol already. He's taught me about that. And we have done that just to let you know that on behalf of Trinity, I have asked him to help us learn this morning. And so welcome, Rob.
Thank you. I'm actually a triple threat. It's Father's Day too. So and happy Father's Day to everyone here. My name is Rob Gurney. I'm from Montreal Lake, Saskatchewan, which is north of Prince Albert on Treaty 6. And thank you for having me here. I'm nervous. I've been doing stage for 33 years, but I'm actually quite nervous.
And I'm nervous too, because I want everything to go well for Rob and everybody here together learning. So we'll do our best, Rob.
This part of one of the beliefs is it's going to, Creator and all that, it's going to happen the way it's supposed to happen. Yeah. So.
That's comforting. All right, so Rob, before we begin, is there anything else you could tell us about who you are before I start asking a couple questions that our group has collected for you?
Sure, I'll let you know a little bit about myself. So I was adopted at age 5. I was part of the 60 Scoop, which is the second phase they had after residential schools. And it was in Saskatchewan. It was interesting, though, because Saskatchewan had billboards saying, "Would you like to save an Indian child?" It was interesting. This was back in the 60s and 70s. And so I was adopted into a Caucasian family. It was a Mormon family, so I do understand and appreciate Christianity and the wonderful lessons and stories they have. A lot of the good morals that I learned from it. I think one of my favorites was the Good Samaritan. So I do have a bit of understanding of that. And then when I was 17, 18, I left home when I was 15. And back then it was different. We were left home. Now kids are still, like my own son's still at home and he's 19. He's probably going to be there for a while. Back then it was different. You're 18, get out. So then I got myself lost into substance use, and that lasted for a good 10 years. I was houseless. All these things that were happening, and I wasn't in a very good place at all. And then we had our son when I was 31, and I'm 50 now, and I sobered up when I was 39, and I've been sober and clean since then. And that's when I was more into my culture and understanding it a bit more and what it meant to me and ceremony. And it was there's 7 sacred teachings, the grandfathers, and a lot of them are very much the same as Christian beliefs, just doing things in the right way and the good way. I won't say right way, the good way, yeah.
Thanks. So one of the questions our group thought about that we'd like to learn from you today is, what does it mean to be Two-Spirit, or what does it mean to you?
Okay, so I was on the interweb. And I found this explanation that I think kind of says it all. I want to share it with you. Just a moment. Because this kind of says it all. Two-Spirit varies in what it refers to. The phrase coming from the Anishinaabe term, Nish-Mantuwag, which directly translates to spirit, two spirits. The initial intent in coining the term was to differentiate Indigenous concepts of gender and sexuality used to describe Indigenous people who fulfill a traditional third gender. Indigenous people who identify as having both a masculine and feminine spirit describe Indigenous gender identities and used as an umbrella term for queer Indigenous people. Two-Spirit is commonly used as an umbrella term for various identities, but is ultimately a pan-Indigenous term, meaning it exclusively refers to Indigenous people. Each Indigenous community is different, so every Two-Spirit person's conception of the identity is different. It's important to note each Indigenous community has their own traditional terms in their languages for gender identities and sexual orientations. So what it means to me is it really helps my identity, because growing up, I wasn't sure what was going on with me. I actually ended up in a psychiatric hospital thinking that something was really wrong with me, and I was really ashamed and feeling really bad about it, and did a lot of praying, Christian praying. So it was a lot of, I was raised in a very vengeful, angry God, and that's not what I'm feeling or seeing here at all. So that's why I'm here today, because I don't feel that. I know that I trust Kathy. So for me, Two-Spirit is just a way of identifying myself, and it's an intersection between sexuality, gender, orientation, and it's a spectrum of all of them, which is really neat, because I'm also, so I am bi, so female and male, but I also have a masculine side and a feminine side. I'm also a drag queen at LaDonna Cree. So, just kidding. So Two-Spirit to me is very much a term that describes who I am. It's like I found my identity. I went for years and decades not knowing who I was or how to explain who I was. And they had some other terms that others communities used, but they weren't what we were looking for when it came to Two-Spirit. And it says 3 genders, but actually there's 8 genders and sometimes even more within Indigenous communities.
All right, thank you. So it sounds as if it was a positive for you as you with your feelings, and figure out who you are. But are there some challenges that are unique to being Two-Spirit?
Yes, there is. So being Two-Spirit, there's discrimination out there. We were talking earlier about unconscious biases, where I'm walking down the street. It's a two-edged sword for me being Indigenous. I'm a social worker with forensics. And so one of the things I've noticed is I'm walking down the street, people will grab their purses closer, people will hold their children closer, cross the street, won't go in the elevator if I'm already in there. Guys will puff up just because of fear of not knowing. And so there's that side, but there's also the other side where I can go downtown to the inner city and I can blend in and do my work and do other work and talk with people. It's almost like because there's a disproportionate number of people within the judicial system that are Indigenous. And they're like, I think 5% of the population, but they're 15% of the population in prisons. Something like that. It's a really high number. I think, yeah. And so I'm able to make that connection automatically, just being who I am, and they see me, they see my skin tone, they see who I am, and they go, oh, okay, and it's almost safe for them to be able to talk to me. So I found that as one of the gifts that I was given, was to be able to talk with people on both sides and understanding where both sides come from, because I'm political in some ways. Part of me is conservative, part of me is not conservative. So it's kind of just, I think all of us have different spectrums of where we are.
Is that working? Nope. Sorry. Thank you. You mentioned, I think you mentioned that the term Two-Spirit is new. Is there, what's the history? When did people start using the term Two-Spirit? Because you explained what it was, but when did it start? Did it come from Indigenous or from other people?
So I did write this out. It started in 1996. The creation of the term Two-Spirit is attributed to Elder Myra Lamai, who proposed it during the 3rd annual Intertribal Native American First Nations Gay and Lesbian American Conference. Whoa, there's the long one. Held in Winnipeg in 1990. The term is a translation of what I was saying earlier, of two spirits. It's an umbrella term. It's self-identified, so you do need to be Indigenous to be able to identify. And yeah.
Thanks. I have one more question on behalf of our group, but before I forget, we'd like to invite you all after the service out into what we call the narthex or the foyer. Rob will be able to stay with us and talk further. We just knew that we would ask, a few questions, and then if you have any in mind, please bring them after service with us. But our last one for now is, how did colonization impact Two-Spirit people?
So this is interesting. And again, going back that with Indigenous, we're very much, our history is oral. So it's taught by talking. Storytelling is probably one of the biggest teachers we have within our culture. And here as well, the Bible is full of stories and we learn from them. The impact of colonization was, Two-Spirit, Indigenous, anyone was erased. Our language was erased. Our identity was erased. I don't have an accent, Indigenous accent, because that was erased as well. So basically, colonization affected all Indigenous peoples. Two-Spirit in particular was when we were back in the time, we were the original social workers. We worked with ceremonies, we worked with the chiefs, we were marriage counselors, we were gatherers, we were hunters, so we had these different roles. And then when colonization came, we had to go into hiding. And then the government said from 2005 to 1905, I believe, to 1950, there was 30 years where it was against the law for us to practice ceremony. We could not do sweat lodges. We could not do any of these things because their perception of what they saw was they're screaming and yelling. What are they doing? They didn't understand it, but this is the way that we grew up. We grew up with the earth and the sky. That's how we Indigenous people see the world. We see it as, what is our relationship to the land, and what does that mean when an animal dies and we hunt them? We do a prayer for them. We offer tobacco. We don't kill or hurt just to do that. We have a reason and purpose. There's actually a Far Side cartoon. They have a buffalo that's there. The guy's talking to the kids. Well, we use the buffalo except for this part. No one knows what it is. I just laugh so hard at that.
Just thinking about that, was there something about residential schools for Two-Spirit people having to be either a boy or a girl for their clothing? Is that something that happened?
Yes, and this is the dark side of colonization and neo-Christianity, was that when residential schools came, so just imagine that you're being taken away from your parents, or your parents are being told that your kids are going to be a safer place and they're going to get fed and all that. And then sometimes just grabbing your kids and taking them. And they also did that in 60 Scoop. You'd be walking down the road and then somebody would pick you up and take you. And they thought, well, poverty is something wrong. So if you're poor, then you can't be a parent, which is not true. We know that today. And so what happened was, I'm off track right here. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm nervous. So when we were put into residential schools, all girls had their hair cut done with bangs and hair down to here. All guys had their hair cut. There's actually some photos. There was a Two-Spirit child, and they were in female clothing. They had the braids done, and when they went in there, they were stripped of that, and stripped of the language. If you talked your language, you would get hit. And they go, why are we being hit? We don't get it. We don't understand what these people are saying. And so it really had a devastating impact on children. I can't imagine, I'm sure any of us can imagine, having our child taken away and being abused, basically, and being told, it was just being told that who you were was not right and you had to be this way. Yeah, so that was quite the impact. So Two-Spirit back then were also, they had to hide, and you had to be male or female. You had to have those roles. Yeah.
Right. Thank you for helping us learn. I think that for me has given me more questions now. I want to know more. So please join us after. A little thing for you on behalf of our church. Thank you for being with us today. I've known Rob for a while, and it's really nice to be able to learn more in this environment. I have seen LaDonna Cree perform. Highly recommend it. You can let me know. You can come with me. But yeah, I really appreciate it on behalf of our congregation. Thank you very much.